Hello, everybody. Dan Eisenberg here again. This is Scale Up Podcast. This is episode, I think, number 38. Yes, we've arrived at episode 38. We've had a lot of fun together, and we've seen a huge variety of entrepreneurs who have built companies in many different sectors, many different countries, in all different sizes and shapes. One of the commonalities is they already have some product market fit, at least some, if not a lot of product market fit. And their main issue is how they grow, how they scale up. And so I'm really excited to have today a very special guest, Robert Wessman, whom I've known, I think now coming on 20 years. And I don't know if you can say that there's an official Robert Wessman or unofficial Robert Wessman watcher, but if there is one, it's me. Because I've already published, I think, 3 cases, and we're working on the 4th case of Robert and his ventures. So I think I know at least those sides of him pretty well, in addition to the fact that he's a very, very accomplished winemaker, and I know that side also reasonably intimately, I can say. So, Robert, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hi Dan. Great pleasure to be with you and participate today. So thanks for inviting.
So we're going to explore all different aspects of scaling up companies from your perspective. And I think if there is somebody who I think is sort of a repeat offender, so to speak, of scaling up companies, Robert is the quintessential one. He's, I don't know, probably $7 or $8 billion companies at least, including Actavis, which became eventually one of the 2 or 3 largest generic pharmaceutical companies in the world, Alvotech, which has generated huge amounts of customer value, social value, and also financial value for shareholders, and a relatively new company called Alvotech, as well as 4 or 5 other companies that are part of I could go on and on. You don't care about but the point is that if somebody has sort of systematized or regularized the process of scaling companies, certainly Robert's one of the few. And so let's start with that. And just, you must have by now in your mind some sort of playbook, Robert, of how you grow a company. So let's start peeling that onion, so to speak. What are some of the principles of scaling up a company in your experience? And give examples as we go.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I operate my companies in a very similar manner as you know, Dan. Uh, when you and I've done, as you mentioned, 7 global companies. I'm not counting anything which is like winemaking or other hobbies, but the big ones. So I think when you start a business, you always have to think about, if you want to scale them, that you are starting from day one with the scale in mind. And that comes back to many things. I mean, first of all, if you want to be a long-term successful person with a scaled business, you need to start with, of course, the business model itself. You need to think about the product or products. I mean, which one are you going to have going forward? What is really going to drive the growth going forward? And you need to, of course, in that relation, think about the markets. And I always think my marketplace is the world. And I never built a business thinking I'm going to be placing this into Iceland or Scandinavia or only 1 or 2 markets. I always think about the portfolio and the markets in the same context of being able to scale.
The first, just to interrupt. So the first is think about big opportunities.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not, in my mind, this of course can happen, but it's not very common that you become a global scale company if you don't think about it from day one. So it's not just a luck or happening overall that you end up having a multinational or global businesses, if you will. So in that respect, that's number one. You need to think about then, in my particular case, I mean, I'm manufacturing in all the companies I've had. So, for instance, you mentioned Alvotech. I mean, I invested in Iceland close to $500 million into manufacturing, and that was mostly done before I put the first product on the market. So I really built for the scale. So once you start to launch the product, you would not be constrained of being able to grow the business because you are lacking scale. And one does, of course, not necessarily have to produce everything in-house. You can have a CMO or partners elsewhere, but you need to think about the capacity to be able to support the growth which you are aiming at long term.
Can I
Yeah,
also just, sort of
yeah,
ask you
yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, of
about
course.
that? And that is sort of what I call contrarian thinking. It seems to me that one aspect might be that you're seeing things that not everybody is seeing at the same time because you're really anticipating 5, 10, 15 years down the pike. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's. I think you very much hit it on the spot there because for Alvotech, for instance, when I started that business 2013, I was always looking to launch first product 10 years later. So I was building the capacity, building the portfolio, setting up a global commercial platform into 90 countries all before the first product came into the market. So, and of course, I had to anticipate it because I was starting in an industry which Alvotech is in today, biosimilar, which almost it didn't exist. So I was basically both building the business, anticipating how I would think the market would look like, which kind of clinical trials would be required, how to register the product, and how to sell those globally. So we kind of had to anticipate how the future would look like in 10 years. But what I was convinced of was that biologics would be the key selling pharmaceuticals 10 years from the day I started the business, if you will. And knowing that, I knew also that those pharmaceuticals, biologics are extremely expensive. So they would put a lot of constraint on the healthcare systems globally, and a need for a business like ours 10 years later would be substantial.
So let me ask you this. You didn't really, as far as I understand it, have any information that wasn't available to anyone. In other words, everyone had the same information you had about
Yeah,
you.
yeah, clearly. Yeah, we all
Oh,
had the same crystal ball. We just saw it differently.
yeah, so what is it that leads you to see it differently?
No, I mean, in this case, I just had a very strong conviction myself. I mean, I believed I think it is kind of just logical thinking. There is no one else gonna uh, tell you what will happen or not happen. I mean, first of all, biologics are very effective. They are very targeted as a medication, less side effects, more efficacy, if you will. Uh, so at the same time, super expensive. So, I mean, with that all in front of me, I mean, I strongly believe this would be an industry. So today, we are one of less than 10 really back-to-back, fully integrated, pure play biosimilar company in the world. And there are not many of them because it takes minimum 10 years to build. And I invested over $1 billion before I put the first product on the market. Another $1 billion been invested in the pipeline and the portfolio, so $2 billion invested. So the conviction was there, and we basically and I basically wanted to be selecting the right time, which I think is also another one which is super important for entrepreneurs in many differences that you can't be too early. And some companies went too early into the biosimilar businesses. The environment was not there. The regulatory environment was not there. How to sell those products, nobody had kind of clue. Different opinion, at least. I had my own, and I think my view on it has mostly materialized. So you can't be too early, and also you didn't want to be too late because post 2022, 3, all this policy of patents coming off, and you really wanted to ride that wave, if you will. So being too early or too late is also super important when you are scaling the business.
Okay, so step one is you have to understand the opportunity, see
Yeah,
it maybe where other people didn't see it, get your
yeah,
timing right. Now let's go
yeah,
into building the team, the
yeah.
organization. What's the playbook there?
Yeah, I think, and that's a very important question because this is equally important. Is that when you're building the business, you can imagine the infrastructure. I mean, you need to think about when you build up the infrastructure, whether it is the R&D processes to have your own internal playbook to make sure that you are successful. We have passed 30 clinical trials. Out of 30 clinical trials we have conducted based on the playbook we have for the R&D and how we conduct that. Super important. When you are starting to build out the manufacturing and the global supply chain, you kind of need to think of, I'm going to scale this up and be a global business. So it's not only the capacity you need basically all the infrastructure when it comes to the supply chain and how to deliver the product on time to market in the right quality. So all the quality systems, all the supply chain, everything else. And when you pick the people, you need to build it all to be fit to be scaled. So I try to hire in people which can cope with growth, which have the experience because if you're going to scale, you have to scale with experience. You have to scale with the infrastructure and the systems which are needed to really be successful. You can imagine shipping products, pharmaceutical products, register them in 90 countries. You need to have it all spot on. So having the right team in place is the beginning, is the start. The experienced team, which will then help you to build out all and lay the ground for the scaling and the success going forward.
So I'm guessing that one way of getting such an experienced team is A, having a very clear, compelling vision, and
Yeah.
also, as say, your experience, your track record, and the knowledge of the people themselves. So, okay, you've got the team together, let's say, and you've got the idea, you've got the concept. Where do you go from there? And I know I'm making it sound more linear than it is, but I think in your case, to some extent now it is somewhat a linear process.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you get the team in, the vision in our mind back in 2013 was it's never very humble, you know. It's was to build a leading biosimilar company in the world, and it's basically based on a few fundamental. I mean, we use the same. We call it star map. It's basically it goes built around the markets, about the portfolio. It builds around the best quality, best then service to our clients. Basically having products which can be cost competitive, and then building the best team. So this all sounds fairly broad, easy, something which everyone can do, but then you start to engage with the team. I mean, if you want to build the best service, it means that you need to build out all the system best in class. And then it goes down to all the details of, as I mentioned, whether it is a supply chain, manufacturing processes, the capacity, third-party CMOs if you need, and all that. So quality systems, I mean, that goes into all the details of building those out, making sure you have best-in-class team, and making sure that you comply. So we have all those guiding points, which are the same in all the companies I've built out. But and then you need to really start to work on it with the team in all the details, set the strategy in place, which we do, and then I mean, everything else we do follows the vision and the strategy, which we call the star map, into then corporate goals, into business unit goals, which are then fine-tuned and adjusted, especially the goals as the years passes, because you go from startup, I mean, you need to get the facility built, and then you scale. Once that is done, you are basically working on the portfolio and pipeline. You're making sure that this all aligns on time, and as the time goes by, then you take the next step in the journey, starting to plan for the supply chain, for the global kind of commercial platform. So the vision is always there, the corporate goals are there, and then you piecemeal it throughout the journey into what needs to be in place and when.
So how do you actually get that? I mean, in concept, it's very simple, let's say,
Yeah.
but one of the things that's special about it is you drive that down to the lowest level. So even at the lowest level, the star map is still sort of the guiding star, if you will. How do you do that?
I mean, it's a lot of communication. It's basically requires, I think overall you need to, if you build a company like this, it comes down to how you manage the business and the culture of the business. I mean, we have, in our company, we have over 70 nationalities. I think we have people from 72 countries. So it starts with kind of, you know, how we communicate, which is just a basic, we call it the rules of engagement, very important, because when you have people from over 70 countries, they come from a different national culture, from different corporate culture, etc., and family culture. So we try to build out the same culture within the business, even though we kind of respect all culture. We want to have our own culture when you walk through the door of some of my companies. Then it is the vision, the big vision we communicate, and everyone understands where we are going with building out Alvotech as one of the leading pure play biosimilar companies, where we are opening access to patients around the world which would otherwise not get the medications. And then you need to take it down to corporate goals, what you're going to hit there when it comes to service level and supply and reliability, quality. And then you need to go into details of even process mapping. So every single one, you can imagine when you have manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, it's interaction between production, quality, drug substance, drug product, assembly, release. So it's so multiple entry and exit point. So to make sure that you keep that intact, you need to do the process mapping, and people need to understand exactly the role and the goal in the whole value chain, if you will. And then you build around that the business unit and department goals, where each department has a particular piece of responsibility of delivering the overall strategy, and then in the end, the vision. So holding then the management responsible, accountable, and give them certain freedom within both the budget we make and then with their own goals. We monitor that then with KPIs. So it is a bit of a holistic approach, and then of course all the bonuses, remuneration, promotion within the company is all linked to how you are doing compared to all those goals. And the goals and objective of most are not only financials, they are also related to quality and, if you will, culture. So it all has to fit well together. It's like orchestrating a symphony. You always you have someone out of tune, and then your role is to make sure that every instrument is well tuned and we are playing the same song at the right time, if you will.
Well, okay, that's an interesting analogy. I can imagine, and I'll be a little bit provocative here, perhaps. I can imagine that people listening to this, some of them will say that this is over controlled, or imagine in their minds that this is over controlled, mechanistic, and kind of tedious. And other people say,
Yeah.
wow, this is like being part of a winning team that people really, all the parts fit together so perfectly. Of course, it's not perfect, but
Yeah.
how do you get more of the second and less of the first? How do you get that?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, actually, because so when you build a winning culture, which you need to have if you want to scale and you want to be successful, because if you are going to be having an average culture, you will create average companies. So you need to have the big vision. You need to scale, break it down. You need to, and the main issue in many companies, especially when you are operating in a complex environment, the reason why uh, the culture might not be working is that you see engagement not fully where it should be, meaning engagement from both employees, but often even with the management. And there, the downside can often be that they are not fully clear what their role and goal should be. And usually, uh, when you don't have that, you have a less of an engagement, if you will. And what we do is that we need to have a very clear organization responsibility and accountability so you can give people a freedom. Because when you have so many interaction in producing medication or developing a medication, if one part of the whole chain is not delivering on time, you kind of the rest is gonna fail also. And in the end, we have patients around the world which is counting on our products. It's complex once our patient start to use our products, have to swap to another biosimilar or brand. So it's super important that this is all in place. But in many ways, this is done to be able to give the management a freedom to operate. So you don't have to micromanage. You see that the manager A, B, C, D, E are actually delivering the KPIs. They are on time with what they are doing. The quality incidents are all within control. The employees are engaged and happy. The culture is there. So you don't really have to engage too much with those managers because you see and you know that they have what they should have under control. But then you have others which are struggling. They might need help with their team to train them or you strengthen the team, and so you can allow them to really operate which are doing very well, and you can support the one which are struggling. But everyone should know very well what is expected at the end of the day.
So in a sense, you're saying by having this extreme clarity of
Yeah,
objectives, guidelines, processes, people have, in a sense, freedom. It's almost paradoxical. Have
yeah,
freedom to operate.
exactly. You delegate, and within the frame of definition, and if that's being delivered, the team has the freedom, and we and then of course what is very important when you're uh, uh, kind of hiring in people. So we look at and that has to be part of the overall picture to become successful, especially in a scale up. Among the points I've already discussed is the type of personality. I mean, when you are hiring in our business, I mean, we look at education, we look at experience, and we look at personality. And I mean, when it comes to at least the technical part of the jobs, I mean, if you don't have the experience or education, you basically are not getting the interview. So once you get the interview, it's mostly about, of course, partly your experience, but your personality. And we want to have people which are, you know, ambitious, which are willing to participate in a company which is showing ambition to make a meaningful impact in the industry and scale the business as we are doing. We want to have people which are good in being proactive in solving issues as they come up. And I quite often say to my people, I mean, if you're driving a car and you hit a roadblock, you're not just waiting there for someone to come and knock on your window and tell you that you are basically stopped and you should take another route. It's more or less like Garmin. I mean, if you take a wrong route, you're going to the destination. It's just say recalculating. We need people which are able proactively to sort things out and do like Garmin, just recalculate so we get on time to the final destination. And then we put a lot of effort in that people are able to work in a team. Individuals which are not able to work in a team in the end eventually will not fit the culture we have. And so hiring in the right team, of course, we don't want everyone to be the same, but sharing the same fundamental of the ambition, being proactive, solution oriented, being able to work in a team is something which is important to us.
Now, you've done some interesting things in terms of intentionally building this kind of culture. And if I remember correctly, in Alvotech, you created kind of a council of people to help proliferate this
Yeah, true.
innovation. Say
Yeah,
a little
true.
bit about that because it's unusual.
Yeah, it's basically so when you're building a culture in a company, it's always best to do that from day one. But still, I mean, culture is not something which you talk about once a year, in my mind, because it doesn't work. You have to live it. The management have to live it. They have to be the role model, and if they are not the role model, then the rest will not follow. So but we have a cultural champions because the culture is among the whole team within the company. Those are basically coming from all different types of departments, units within the company, like 15, 20 people. We elect and re-elect half of them every year. So you're elected for 2 years. So you are basically working with people to get more ideas, and you're working with kind of both the CLT, myself, and the human resource unit, how we can continue to embrace the culture we wanna have there.
What
And with that,
do they appear in training sessions? Do they convene meetings? Do they have social media? What activities do they
no, I
do?
mean it's a very multifunctional. I mean, we have when we talk about how we interact. We might take a week for that and different approaches, different posters, different themes. We might talk about, what is important when it comes to goal setting, when it comes to quality. So it's basically engaging much more than only handful of corporate staff to uh, make sure that the message is alive, that the message is embraced. And then on a quarterly basis, we elect the cultural champion winners, kind of, which business unit is really embracing the culture in a best way. So it's a multifunctional approach, engaging the cultural champions to work with the 1,500 people we have, because to basically make sure that we understand what the people don't understand or they think is not working in our culture, and finding solution to that, which might be training, might be different sessions, might be dedication of days and weeks of different messaging, etc. So it really has helped us, and we are measuring the engagement, and we have now been doing this maybe for 2 years, the cultural champions, and we are seeing the engagement going up every quarter since we started. So I would say I would highly recommend it.
You remember who came up with the idea?
I think you are talking with him now.
Great. So, Robert, let's step back a little bit and look at your evolution over the last, your personal, well, professional evolution over the last 20 years. And I'm just going to use the simple Actavis, Alvogen, Alvotech sort of as the main anchors in your
Yeah,
personal journey.
yeah,
And of course, we wrote the case on Actavis 20 years ago, and a
Yeah,
lot of things that you're talking about today are very similar to
yeah,
what how you built Actavis. It's
yeah,
possible that, as in the Olympics, you have difficult in gymnastics, you have difficulty and you have execution. And in a
yeah,
way, the difficulty has increased of the what you're trying to do because
yeah,
biosimilars is much more difficult in many
yeah,
ways than
yeah.
generics are. But how have you evolved, would you say, in terms of your outlook, your perspective, your management style, etc.?
Yeah, I think the business concept has the big picture have not changed a lot. The concept, how I look at it, vision, goal setting, you know, delegation to people, motivation, all that. I don't think that has changed. But of course, I started in the industry 29. I took over the small company Delta, which turned into the third biggest one in the world 8 years later, Actavis. I'm 50, almost 7 this year. So of course, within the concept, you adjust the business model, whether you're building a biosimilar, whether you're building a US business with even branded development and launches into that. At Alvo, which I built in with an amazing team in 6 years, a business to business, we did not have any R&D or manufacturing. We still sold that business to around $1 billion 6 years later. So it's always, and all those companies are using the same method. Uh, you might adjust the details, how you execute, what is the flavor of the day, but overall, it's you know, making sure the culture is there. People are ambitious. There's a strong level of respect. There is the right products on the right time, and you get the product shipped to market to right people on time. So, in the end, it's a very similar concept. And I remember I was attending one of your classes when one of the big big one was there, and they were into sport goods and clothing. I don't want to say the name. And I had a very
Yes.
interesting conversation. You might remember that when I was discussing this, because it was kind of they could see themselves. I think, were trying to figure this out and figuring out that their clothing uh, offering were not maybe not as it should be, and where the logistics center and the production. So you can use it helps you to focus on what you need to focus on, and it's more or less always the same. It's the quality, it's the cost, it's the product, it's the market. But then you need to take it to the details, and I add in front of all this best. So when we sit down and we want to have a best portfolio, what does it mean? And that is taken to the extreme, that we want to have the best portfolio, meaning we want to have a product which the market needs, which there is a strong demand and is on time being launched.
So
Because, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm very conscious. I don't have you for an infinite amount of time, which is why
Yeah. Okay.
I don't. So I'm very conscious that, uh, and I want to just make sure that everyone understands that we're dealing in an industry which is good for people. In other words, we're dealing with products that help people be healthy and that drive the cost of healthcare down. So I think
Yeah,
you don't mention it very much, but this is an overall. I mean, it's there in the background that you're doing
yeah,
things really to help the world.
yeah,
Uh, but I want to look at it just maybe this will be the last question, a little bit differently, and it's kind of hypothetical. And let's say that you were going to create, and I'm going to make this up, the Robert Wessman School of Scale Up,
yeah,
and you were going to select a group of, let's say, 20 to 25-year-olds who have the best potential for building similar kinds of extremely socially and economically valuable companies. What are
yeah.
the kinds of traits that you would look for and mindsets, attitudes you'd look for in these 20 to 25-year-olds?
Yeah, I mean, I would look a lot into their personality more than anything else, because a journey like this, uh, you need to, first of all, have extremely strong conviction, because the amount of headwinds you will face from, having nothing and build something which can be called global, already scaled business. It's a extremely rewarding journey, but it's extremely challenging. So I would say conviction, I would say outstanding courage, because it's so, when you are standing there, and as we discussed before, I mean, sometimes this has not been done exactly like this before. There's no one, and I mean, half of the people will tell you this is not possible. The market will not be like this; it will be like that. You need to have conviction that that where you are heading is in the right way. You need to have courage to really drive that, and then you need to be allowed to, willing to take on board strong people, which you have to listen to, and not let your own ego be in your way. Change your mind as often as you will, but just focus on the end goal, which is, like in my mind, with Alvotech, building a leading biosimilar company in the world. And we are reassessing the approach to the portfolio product. What is the best portfolio every week, every month, and we are flexible based on what we hear from our clients, what we hear from people in house. And I always say, I mean, if you have an issue you really have to solve, the best way to solve it is to ask 2 or 3 or 4 people questions, and then listen and take advice. So
Okay.
I would look at those traits in a person, which I would be looking at. If you don't have any of those traits, I think you should not even think about scaling a global business, if you will.
Well, I guess one of my takeaways from that is a little bit of a paradox, like a lot of things, is that you have to have this incredible conviction at the same time that you have to, in a sense, be egoless. You're not doing it
Yeah,
to for your.
exactly. No, exactly.
Well, Robert, this is amazing, and I'm going to, at this point, let you go. And thank you very much for participating in this. Again, this is Dan Eisenberg, Scale App Podcasts. I do this as a hobby. It's a serious hobby, so if you like it, like it. Share it with friends. I think we're building up an incredible amount of know-how about how to build businesses, and this has been, for me, particularly gratifying to have you, Robert, as a guest now, because I've known you for so long, and I've been watching you for so long, and I've learned so much from you as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's always an amazing pleasure and great pleasure to see you. So thanks for inviting me, and good luck.